everyone, I'm Preston from DevRocket, and today we're talking about interfaces and types in TypeScript. When we cook, we use recipes. In recipes, we use ingredients. Recipes contain collections of different ingredients. In TypeScript, interfaces and types serve as recipes for your data. Interfaces define the specific requirements for each piece of data, like how many ingredients are needed and how they should be combined. Types, on the other hand, define the specific data types, like whether an ingredient is a liquid or a solid. Interfaces are used to describe the shape of data and specify the syntax that each entity must follow. Types, on the other hand, define data types such as primitives, intersection, tuple, union, or different types. But in practice, what does this mean? What can we use for interfaces? What do we use them for? And what can we use for types? Well, let's dive right in. We can define a success interface to define the shape of a success message object. For example, interface, success, and we might give it a success property, which would be just set to true because it's always going to be true if it's a success, right? And then the message property might be a string. Great. And then we can use it for something like success message. Success. So we'll give it that. And then we will add success true. And then message would be something like this is a success message. Great. And then we could create something like a success type, right? And we'll give it the same thing as what we gave to our interface. Same exact definition. But like, what's the difference, right? We can use it in something like success message 2. Is going to be success true. True, and then message. This is a success message. Great. But something like this is the exact same thing as this. So like, what's the difference? Like, why do we use interfaces or types, right? So let's dive right into that. So there are a few differences and things that we can do in types and in interfaces that we can't do in the other, right? So let's look at something like unions. So we could create something instead of a success, we might create a failure interface. Failure is going to be pretty much the same, except it's going to be a success false. And then instead of a message, it's going to be error, right? So this is just like the success message, but a little bit different, right? There's an error instead of a message. So we can use a union type to build something that can be either a success or a failure. So we can say type, and so we're defining a brand new type is going to be result. So that's what we're going to name our type. And then we're going to say, hey, we want it to be either a success or a failure. And TypeScript is completely happy with that. But we can't do something like that in interfaces. Interface, result, interface, just because we need to give it a unique name. And we can't say something like success or failure because just TypeScript is like, hey, sorry, this is not going to work for us here. We just can't do that. We can then use something like this result type in some sort of function, like function handle result is going to be result is the parameter that we're accepting. And we'll say that's going to be the result interface. Then we can say if result dot success. So if if we have a success, then log the result. And then else result dot error. Great. So now we can see that we can use that that either results the result, which is either a success or a failure. So we're creating this union type and then using it in something like our function. Let's look at another thing, merging. So we can define, say, something like an interface, person interface. Interface person is going to be name. We want that to be a string. But then say later on in our code, we also later merge it with another person interface. So we can actually say interface person again. And TypeScript doesn't yell at us, which is kind of strange, but it's allowing us to merge these two. And so we can say age number. And so now person interface is going to have both of those. So if we say const Joel person is going to be the type that this Joel is, or the interface with which it is defined, we say name Joel. And age 30. We'll just say something like that. And TypeScript is very happy with that. But if we remove this second one, then we see that TypeScript is like, hey, sorry, you can't do that because age is not on the person type, right? So so this is one way that interfaces can be super helpful. We can't do that with types. Like if we just wanted to create something like type coworker, name string, great, same thing. Type coworker, oops, name or age. TypeScript is like, hey, you already defined this type, and so sorry, you can't do that. We can't, we just can't merge it, the two. So do something like that. So yeah, we just can't merge those, but we can merge interfaces. What about something like an intersection? Well, this is similar to how interfaces are used and merging them together. We can do the same thing with types, but by merging them. So what we say is type something like A is going to be name, string, and type B, age, number. Cool. And of course, these are two different types, but we can say type C is going to be either A or, sorry, not either A or B, that would be a union, but this is creating an intersection of the two, which is say like, hey, we want to create one type with all of the properties from either one of these. And TypeScript is very happy with that. So now we can say const person is going to be the C type is, has both a name property and an age property. Cool. So that's another way that instead of creating that merging of the two interfaces in a type, we can create an intersection of the two. Great. So as we have merged the two, that A and B, to get C, we can also extend types to be extensions of another interface. So say we have a type employee. It's going to be ID, number, and let's give it a salary because it's an employee, number. And then we will say we want to extend this from the person interface. And this is great. TypeScript is very happy with this. We can extend that interface and add all of its properties to the employee. And so now we have an employee type with ID, salary, and let's see, const Alex. We can say employee is the type, is going to be name, Alex, age, 45, because we can give it an age property and an ID, and a salary. So we can give it all of these properties because we have something like $100,000. Is that 100,000? No, $100,000. Great. Makes 6 figures. Awesome. And so yeah, so we can extend these types to be extensions of properties or of interfaces. And we're adding all of those things there. So let's see. Let's move this down here. Great. And so now we also see that types are something that we can use to define a primitive. Anybody that's brand new to TypeScript probably already knows this, so this is probably a moot point, but still, it's worth mentioning that types can do this. So we can say type name is going to be a string because it's a name, right? And then we can use it to define a variable, say customer name is going to be a name type is John. And now we are enforcing that customer name variable to only hold a string or a name type, which is a string. But we can't use interfaces to define a primitive type, like interface name to equals string. We just can't do that. TypeScript yells at us. It says, hey, sorry, this is a type, but it's being used as a value. No, I don't think that's what you meant to do. Because interfaces, as we can see, are only really intended to describe the shape of an object or that type of a construct, that data structure in TypeScript. Now, one last one, and there are many, many more, but we'll go into just some of the main ones here. And so this is the last one we'll talk about, which is a tuple. So in TypeScript, we can define a tuple type, which allows us to define an array with a fixed number of elements. So say we have a colleague type is either the first element will always have a string, and the second element will always have a number. And that's what this exact tuple is defining. So, and then we could say const John. Oops, yeah, right. Colleague. So we're saying that John is going to be an array, or this tuple that we've just defined, and it's going to have a John property and an number, which is probably the age or whatever. But this is the tuple that we are implementing in a variable. So something like this is great because TypeScript is happy with us. But if we create another John and we switch the two, TypeScript is not happy with us. It just says like, hey, string is not assignable to type number, and number is not assignable to type string, because both of these are just incorrect. They're in the wrong spots. We have to switch them to be like that, right? Also, it's worth noting again that we cannot use interfaces to create a interface colleague 3 or something like that. We can't do this. TypeScript gets mad at us. So there you have it. We talked about a few different things that are the differences between interfaces and types. Hi there, it's Preston again. If you liked today's video, I want to give you my exclusive free guide, TypeScript Essentials, 5 critical keys to using TypeScript effectively. Click the link in the description below to get access now. Thanks for watching.